Hey guys, welcome back to another bird tutorial. Today we're painting a purple finch. If you've been following along with this series of 9 bird paintings, this is the final one in the series, and initially I had planned on doing a mourning dove in the corner here. The problem with that I'm discovering now is that the mourning dove is a large bird. It's larger than all the other ones I'm depicting in this collage, and I found just the perfect picture of a purple finch that will fit perfectly in the corner. The angle of the tail, the direction of the head, everything is just so perfect. So I hope you don't mind, I'm switching it out for the purple finch. I also think it's going to be a really nice balance for the reds in this painting because the cardinal will use Scarlet Lake, and for the purple finch I'll also be using Scarlet Lake. It's going to be so pretty. So grab your supplies, let's get started. Colors you'll need for today are Scarlet Lake or some sort of warm red like cadmium red light. I'm going to be using my transparent brown oxide. You'll need a yellow for some of those tones in the beak. You could use yellow ochre or gamboge nova or Hansa yellow light. Any one of those will work just fine. And then I have Daniel Smith indigo and ultramarine blue. A great substitute for indigo is Payne's gray. For my brush, I'll be using my silver black velvet size 4 round brush. I think it's the perfect size for all of these little studies. And you'll just need paper towel, water, and a pencil. I have already done a very light sketch just to lay out the placement of the bird, but this is of course movable. The drawing, as you'll see with design too, should not be something that you're married to. Be willing to move it, to erase and start over. You're the artist here. You get to control everything about your painting, from the location to the design to the subject matter. You get to choose. All right, so we've got this wonderful proud tilt of the head on this little male purple finch, I'm going to start by really laying down the location of the beak here. I'm tilting my board upright just so I don't accidentally elongate the drawing. This is something that's commonly done when your board is flat and you're seeing it at a slight angle. You want to be able to see it as straight on as possible for the most accurate drawing. The purple finch has a pretty large beak compared to, say, the bluebird or some of these other birds. And we just want to capture the curve of the breast. I love how he's sitting at an angle in the branch, and his little feet have such attitude to them, almost like a swordsman or something. It's ready to take flight. Some things to be thinking about as you work on the drawing are just measurements between different shapes. I'm looking at the diamond shape of the beak here. It's like a diamond sitting sideways. And then where the eye goes is going to depend on how far it is from the back of the head and how far it is from the front of the head. And in this case, I'm actually seeing another diamond shape. If you take the tuft of the head, connect it to the back of the head, you can see this diamond shape right here. So I find that really interesting. You've got the diamond shape of the beak, the diamond shape of the top of the head, and the eye sits right in the bottom of this diamond. Make sure to sketch the location of the highlight. And then once you've got the outer shape of the head, kind of erase your marks, knock them down so that it's not so stark, because you're going to want to capture some of that texture along the top of the head with paint, not necessarily with a flat pencil line. And then the head comes down this way and then curves in a little bit where it connects to the back wing feather. The wings come down at quite a slant. And we don't see a whole lot of those brown or reddish brown wings. Most of what we're seeing from this angle is the bird's breast, which is this beautiful red to pink to tan or white on the bottom. We're going to get to play with those transitions today. And then you've got this curved shape where the head connects to the breast. A couple little marks to take note of on the wings are where you see the separated feathers. There's these tan colored feathers in the midst of the brown ones right there. And then you've got a pointed shape on the underside of the belly, which connects to the tail feathers. And we can finish those out. All right, let's draw the little feet, and pretty soon we'll be ready to start painting. This one comes up so much higher. Little suggestion of a branch under the bird. All right, so if you're happy with the placement of your drawing and the details that you've got so far, you really just need enough information to start painting. You can set aside your pencil and get started. If you want any lost edges, now is your time to study your reference photo and study your drawing and see where it would make sense to lose some edges. I'm going to erase a couple spots here at the top of the head and along the belly where I'm just going to have no edge. I want the mind's eye to complete those shapes. Not everything has to be perfectly laid out and drawn in harsh lines. Okay, so let's grab our paints and get started. The first thing I want to do is get some color down, wet and wet. So we'll start with clean water, painting it all over the bird. You can avoid the legs and the eyes for now, and even the back wings. We're going to focus on the lighter values and the subtle transitions from the red of the head into the pink of the breast and into the tan of the belly. So that's what we're going to work on here. We're really, in effect, creating a graded wash inside the belly of the bird. And this must be done wet and wet. So aim for a nice glossy or satiny surface on your paper. And you can paint the top of the head as well. Although if you do apply red to this wet paper, it's going to be a little lighter in value than maybe you want for the top of the head, but you can always add more layers. The goal here is just to get a subtle transition, like I said. So once it's wet and ready to go, start with your tan color. I'm going to take yellow ochre, actually mix in a little transparent brown oxide and a hint of ultramarine blue for an earthy brownish gray, removing the excess on my paper towel. And we'll start with that for the belly. And these rear tail feathers. Watch your reference photo. Where does it transition to pink? That's what we're going to be kind of paying attention to here. You don't want your brown to creep up into that pure pink just yet. Now we're going to take our Scarlet Lake and start with the brightest color at the top of the head. Slow down a little bit. And you can take your brush, the tip of your brush, and feather it up towards the crest, creating that texture on the top of the head. You want there to be this point at the top. That's the highest point of the bird's head. Trying to be more careful on those. And then as you approach the eye, really slow down. Just paint around the circular shape. Watch your reference photo for where the values begin to change lighter. Here we have still a pretty bright red at the top of the breast. But then I'm going to remove some of the paint, blot on my paper towel. We're going to get lighter as we work our way down. Also watch for little white spots or patches of feathers. There's a patch of white feather right here. And now you might let your brush miss little areas so that it looks like a patchwork of white and pink feathers. You can let it dance across the surface. Dip in more red if you need it to be a little darker, such as here right next to the foot. You have this mottled effect of pink and white feathers on the belly. That's what we're going for. If you want to continue reinforcing some of the red in areas where it should be even brighter, go for it. This is your chance to play with chroma. Just have so much fun with this bright red color. In the shadow tones on the face, I'm going to grab some transparent brown oxide and mix in a little bit of, ooh, that was too much. A little bit of indigo is what I'm going for. I want a shadow tone right next to the eye right here. And I would like it to soften out a little bit, so this is why I'm painting it already on the wet red paper. And it's dried quite a bit already. It's not softening out quite as much as I'd like. So if that's the case, use the tip of your brush to create a soft feathery transition into the lighter red color of the face. So I'm using the tip of my brush to just feather it in the direction I see those feathers moving. And we'll add that shadow tone under the beak. You could also even just paint the bottom side of the beak with that color. It's a really strong shadow right there. And then the separation of the mouth is also a dark color. Got the nostril, and a little bit of bumpy texture in this area just above the beak. I'm going to rinse that out, and I want all of that color out because now I'm reaching for my yellow. I'm going to grab a little bit of Gamboge Nova, it's a warm yellow, and paint that at the base of the beak where it meets the head. I also see a hint of yellow on the side of the head right here. So we'll paint that close to the back feathers, overlapping into the belly a little bit. Already it's dried. It dries so fast. So you're seeing hints of warm yellow tones in the feathers. You're not imagining it, they're there. So use a light, conservative tinted wash of yellow anywhere you see that in the reference photo. I see some down here on the underside of the belly. So I'm just painting it right over the top of that brown mixture that we put down initially. And then we'll take some burnt sienna for the wing. This will be just a first layer. And paint that on the brown. It's a reddish brown wing. This is on dry paper now, so you can go slow, take your time, and really work to capture the details accurately. Still moving my brush in the direction of the feathers and trying to get a nice crisp edge along the wing right here. Notice I'm avoiding that little patch of tan feathers. Painting around that for now. Grabbing a darker color as I move downward. And then a little bit more burnt sienna. Pure color for the base of the wing here. And pulling that all the way into the tail. This ends up being one connected shape. The tail, the color changes from a warm brown to more of a cool brownish gray. So I'm going to switch here and grab a tiny bit of ultramarine and mix that with the brown that's on my palette for a cooler gray tone. And while that burnt sienna is still wet, I can bump this gray right up next to it and watch the two colors touch and blend side by side. It's a subtle way to blend two colors. Just wet next to wet. Removing some of that. These feathers down here are technically white, but because they're all in shadow, they're picking up some of the color of the environment around them. And of course, they're darker than white. So that's what we're capturing here with these tan colors. There we go. So just a little subtle blending and we ended up with this nice tan belly, blending up to pink, blending up to red. We might need to go darker with some of the reds and pinks in the belly, but let's let that dry all the way first so that we can do another layer of wet and wet. In the meantime, I'm going to take a light wash of burnt sienna and fill in this little wing. So we still have a light color there, but it's not pure white anymore. And then I'll take a bit of my dark brown mix and paint some little separated feather shapes at the base of the wing where it meets the breast. Just looking at these little details, there's a couple stripes, brown stripes on the belly. We'll paint those in softly. This is still wet, so it's softening out naturally. And then let's come back to the beak and the head. There's much more detail we can put in the head, more fluffy feathers. So we'll take our transparent brown oxide and mix it with the red. Take a hint of that indigo with it. You want a really nice dark chocolatey brown. And then I'm just going to go ahead and paint in the eye with this color. We can always go over it darker with a pure black or indigo, but for now I think it needs this dark color here to help it feel more lifelike and embedded in the head. And I think that does help. And then with that color, we'll extend it over to the right of the eye, using the tip of the brush to create texture and allowing it to miss little gaps It almost is like painting fur, the soft downy feather texture. And we'll use tiny parallel brush strokes in a curved shape to create the shape of the neck. And you can scrape your brush across the surface. This is the dry brush technique. This is when you have damp paint on your brush and you're just gently scraping it across dry paper to pick up the texture of the paper. If you're using cold pressed like this, that is a great technique for feather and fur texture. Especially this really short, scrumbly kind of texture. And if you want to go even more vibrant with the red crest of the head, grab some more Scarlet Lake and just keep boosting that color. He is so regal. I remember watching these birds feed on the bird feeders growing up in Wisconsin. They're pretty common in the Midwest. All right, let's grab a little more gray, and I'm going to fill in the bottom of the beak except for one highlight here, and then paint that right up next to the middle of the beak. So we're just leaving the top of the beak brightly highlighted. And in fact, I'll go back and erase that pencil mark and we'll have a lost edge on the top of the beak. You might be thinking, well, won't it look like it's incomplete? Well, no, the viewer's imagination will fill that line right in. Okay, with the belly and breast dry, we can go back in for a final layer of wet and wet. So take clean water again, or if it's slightly tinted, that's okay. And we need to reinforce some of the pinks in the breast there, so we're going to take our Scarlet Lake again. It's a murky pink though, it's not as pure as the pink of the head or the red of the head. So I'm mixing in a little of the brown that's on my palette and gently dropping that in. Wherever you want to go a little darker with that rose color, that brownish pink. And I think that looks better already. Of course it'll dry slightly lighter, but that's okay. While it's drying, grab your pure black or indigo and finish the eye. Let's fill it in as dark as possible. Just a circle shape, avoiding the highlight. If you want to darken the crease of the beak one more time, you can. And the shadows. Anywhere you need to go darker, now's your chance to double check your values. Make sure your colors and values are accurate. I'm going to paint these wing shapes right here. Very subtle, nothing crazy. Okay, let's do the little feet. We'll just use a dark brown. You can use burnt sienna mixed with some ultramarine or transparent brown oxide. And just kind of hint at these little feet, wrapping around a branch. This one looks like a little skeleton foot. So cute. Okay, so with the feet done, now we need to attach those feet to something so that it looks like he's not just floating. Once again, we'll use the dry brush technique, scraping our brush across the paper, using just the flat belly side of the brush and blotting it in the shape of a branch. But it looks like a textured branch, doesn't it? Just because of the texture of the paper. If you wish to darken the belly one more time, you can go in with one more layer for the shadow. Just make sure you're not using too much extra water. And then finally, we will wrap up our bird series with one more little hint of spatter. So I'm taking transparent orange, plenty of water mixed with my brush, and we'll just tap the brush right over the paper, pretty much avoiding the bird, just around the bird. And it doesn't need very much. And then to do some more manual circles, I dip in the water. I want a nice light color on my brush, not too dark or gaudy, nothing too crazy vibrant. Can connect a couple of the circles Painting one right here at the base of the tail because I'm planning on erasing my pencil line there, and I want the tail to still look like it has a highlight along that edge. So I'm hoping that'll help. And then we'll plant one more circle right here. One last thing I want to do is restore a soft or hidden edge. This one got a little bit too dark, a little too lost. So I'm just taking a lifter brush. It's got stiff bristles, and I'm lifting some of the color right back out along that edge just to help it appear softer, lighter, more diffused and connected with the light background of this collage. Oh, I'm so happy with our little purple finch. Let's check out the entire board. There they are. Yay, we did it. We painted all 9 birds. These are some of my favorite birds from growing up in the Midwest. I hope you guys will give this a try. Feel free to switch out the birds for other types of birds that you prefer and just have fun painting. Thank you so much for watching and painting with me, and I'll see you in another video.